Hi everybody, here is today's lesson that we're going to be working on for today's Beauty of Pastel demonstration. I hope you enjoy watching this come together. Let's get started. Of course, like normal, I'm starting off with a piece of UArt. This is about 6 by 12 trimmed piece using the same graphite pencil and lightly sketching in this scene. Now, it's important for you to know that I do have a reference photo for this, and I'll pop it up here right now. But this scene, I've already painted this scene once, and I edited it for some creative artistic license. And so really, I'm going more off of my previous painting than I am this reference photo. And that's something that we as artists have in our pockets all the time, which is where we can look at our older pieces and slightly adjust them and alter the way we've painted them before. That's something that I love to do if I'm stuck and I really want to paint something, but I am at a loss, or I've worked on a reference before, but I want to bring some new life to it. And so this piece is really more inspired by my previous painting. So right now, this is how I normally start my pieces. When you watch me, you're going to see that I do a lot of scrubby little trees because that's what we have here in the Panhandle of Texas. And this is the blue NuPastel that I love so much. And I am just lightly glazing in a layer of my main dark areas, representing how trees would look in the distance. It would be much smaller and you wouldn't be able to really tell a specific shape about them. I also added some grayed dark purple to bring in some vibrancy and a little bit of different color to these trees. Now I'm bringing my size 6 fan brush. Where I'm pointing to right now is how the purple that I laid down was much softer pastel, and you can see how the alcohol really, like, those areas are very opaque, but where I put the NuPastel, it's a lot more transparent. And so that is the difference between laying down a soft pastel versus a hard pastel and using the alcohol. So what I'm going to do is, I don't really like that spotty effect, so I'm going to bring in this flat brush of mine, because the flat brush tends to pick up a little bit more pigment and it can move it around a little bit more. So I can kind of soften the edge where that purple was washed in. It was just kind of a little too dark. Bringing back in my fan brush, whisking the alcohol down into where I want this grassy area to be. Really just toning this paper so I don't have to work so hard to cover up the paper color. Now I'm just bringing in, this is a mauve NuPastel, just to continue toning that lower part of the paper and where the grass is, bringing back in the alcohol, swishing it in, moving it up and down and kind of side to side, making little X patterns. The fibers on the fan brush really emulate grasses so beautifully. If you're using a paper that won't accept wet underpaintings, you can use some pipe foam to rub your pastel layer in to reveal more tooth, so that way you can keep layering. This is an orange Rembrandt, still using pretty hard pastels. I love Rembrandts, as you know. They layer on beautifully, bringing in some dark green Rembrandt and just starting to build the layers and the color that I want. I'm just touching the pastel to the paper. Sometimes that alcohol will make the paper bow out a little bit. That's some very cool green there that I'm just touching in the background to symbolize there's a little valley and there's a meadow right past these little scrubby trees. I haven't drawn in I sort of, with the pencil, I drew in the mesa, but I'm gonna wait to finalize that here in a little while. This is that same NuPastel, that mauve NuPastel. So sometimes whenever I put in an underpainting, I will set those same pastels aside, so then I can reiterate those same colors, maybe with a different type of mark making. So that same mauve that I washed in, I'll bring back over it to make some more grassy effects. Bringing in some warmer greens just to keep touching on these scrubby bushes. Starting to kind of bring it down into the grassy areas. Usually in a landscape, whenever we're painting grasses or trees, things are warmer closer to us than they are in the distance. And so I tend to use warmer colors in the foreground areas. Now I'm just added a little bit more green and just kind of whisking that in with some pipe foam. Continuing just to build these layers. Beautiful medium value ultramarine. It has a little cobaltness to it as well. It's kind of a mixture. That's why I love to use it. This is a great for shadowy areas, good for grasses and shadows. Bringing in a much lighter, warm green. This is almost has a yellow tone to it. I'm just going to really start to bring in some other colors and bring in some other textures. Just touching the pastel around, stepping back every now and then. I know on this video it doesn't really show me stepping back. I've edited out a lot of the moments in this painting process where I'm standing there trying to make a decision about what needs to be done. And a lot of that is me stepping away from the painting. And I tend to use, you've heard other people say squint and look at your piece. I don't really squint as much as I use a softer focus. It's almost like I'm taking my contacts out or taking my glasses off, and I'm looking at it with an unfocused vision, which will help me just see the areas that maybe stand out in a weird way or isn't cohesive composition. Where does it need to be darker? Like there, I just added a little bit of charcoal. I'm just kind of filling in that lower area. There, I'm just going to use that rubbing alcohol and just whisk that back in. And rubbing alcohol, I will use it throughout a painting process, just especially with this fan brush and grasses, because those little bristles will pick up some pastel and they will disperse it in a way that is very pleasing, and it's very fine. And so this can help you create those really fine little threads of grasses. So while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and start working on this mesa. And this is the same mauve NuPastel that I used in the foreground just to cut in the shape. And you'll see that I put a little bit of it, make sure it's lined up in the distance. We have a lot of mesas around here, not a lot of mountains, a lot of flat canyon walls. Adding a little bit of purple to push that back a little bit, softening it with the pipe foam. Now I'm adding some more green, just cool greens, just to push those back a little bit, that distant field. I am looking at my previous painting during this, or I'll pop it back up right now, just to see. Sometimes when you're choosing a palette or when you're in the painting process, sometimes you can get kind of, not overwhelmed, but you can get a little bit confused about where to go next. And I do that sometimes. Everybody does that. And so it just helps to have paintings around you that are inspiring, that maybe are from the same area. If you've had a successful piece, bring it out, look at it while you're painting. We can make choices while we're painting that we aren't really even aware of, or we think later on, how did I know to do that? So that will really just help you see your style, see your color palette, and it will just help guide you. And it's also a wonderful way if you are working on a series of paintings, have those paintings out where you can look at them, and that way they will have a cohesive quality to them to where it makes sense to the viewers that this is a series of paintings. Now I'm adding in the path. I added with this coral and very peach color. These are Richardson pastels and also Unison pastels. And I wanted to add some little grass in the middle of this path. I just quickly added that in, and then I'm kind of just gently glazing around it to show there's dirt. This is growing out of the dirt. Adding in some little dark tufts of grass there, and right there where that path goes in between those two bushes. Also just some extra little twigs. That's the blue new pastel that I love to use. Also some Terry Ludwig blues, just in different areas, bringing in some color. You'll notice that whenever I'm painting, I really tend to paint from the inside, and then I gradually make my way to the edges. That will really help my focal point be more in focus. So that way I'm not putting too much information on the edges of the piece where I don't really want people to be focused on. Adding some blues. Whenever I add blues to a distance, mostly that's because I want it to look cohesive with the blues that are in the foreground. Now adding that coral sky that I love to do so much. I layered on some blue, kind of some gray blue pastel over that coral sky, and then I used my foam and I pulled straight down over the coral, over the mesa, and it pulls that pastel over it and it looks like distant rain. And then I also added some yellow flowers in the foreground. Now I'm just those edges at the very, very bottom. I want to kind of soften, just using the threads of that brush to make those grassy sections. Making sure to pull the brush in the direction of the focal point, which is towards the inside. Instead of going out of the painting, I'm going into the painting. Just some additional touches of blue. Looking around and seeing what needs to be done, adding a little bit there back in the distance, or some little trees back there. Weaving this color in and out of the piece. Adding some little darks in there just to add some shadows underneath those bushes. And then I like to add, usually just there's a branch right there, right, that goes right in front of those dark areas, and that just really creates a pretty effect. And once again, I haven't looked at the reference photo for this really at all. I'm looking at my older painting and I'm adjusting it and seeing what do I like about that painting, or what don't I like about that painting, and how can I change it? How can I recreate that effect? It's a great way to, have a painting in your pocket. You don't always have to paint something brand new every time you paint. You can keep working on a scene that you enjoy, and explore that scene, just to kind of get a good grasp of it. And I love that. Adding very carefully, glazing, because those yellow flowers are in the foreground. So I want to symbolize that they're also in the distance, and adding a distant golden field is just so lovely. Making bigger marks in the foreground, because obviously the wildflowers would be bigger, closer to us. Bringing in my vintage Grumbacher pastel. This one makes beautiful marks. I love it. I'm always on the search for these pastels. I sell them on eBay a lot because they don't make them anymore. kind of push and then I flick up. That's a pretty hard mark. I don't do that a lot, but I do for the final touches. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something. If you did, please give this a like. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and hit that little notification bell so you can be notified when I have a new video. I also have support levels over on Patreon. If you would like this free content to keep coming out, you can visit my Patreon channel at patreon.com/Bethany Fields. All the links are in the description. Thank you guys. See you soon.